early on in our history, I know we got into the gel business.
Yes.
Can you give me a little bit of the history on how Rosco moved from dipping lacquers into the color filter business?
Yes, and I pick up on your description. It was exactly following our customers. Rosenstein called on and worked with the producers who had the shows in the theaters. The theaters had marquees, the marquees had bulbs, and that was what Rosco provided, was a lacquer for the bulbs. But inside the theater, there were productions. Productions had to be lit. At that time, there was a small gel company producing gel in Vermont. But the bulk of the color filters, the gel, came from Germany at that time. And 1914, with the advent of the First World War, it became impossible to get German gelatin. And the producers, Rosenstein's customers, came to him and said, look, you're making color. You've got this lacquer. Can't you just make it in sheets? Well, as you can imagine, that was not as easy a transition as it sounds. So it took quite a bit of work and development. But Rosenstein, with people that he added, did develop the technology to manufacture gelatin sheets, and by 1914, 15, he was producing a limited range. I think initially it was something like 12 colors. There are a few more today. And that was where Rosco gel was developed, and he began to supply the theaters with their needs in gel. And the competition with Brigham gel, which came from Vermont, began just around the First World War. Brigham started in 1875 in Randolph, Vermont.
You came to Rosco in 1958.
Yes.
Can you give me a sense of what brought you to the company, what attracted you, and then how you kind of stepped into your role at Rosco?
Yes. I was a salesman for a company called Allied Chemical and Dye, and we sold dyes to, among some larger users, we also sold dyes to Rosco. And I called on Rosenstein, not my easiest customer, I must say. He was 72 years old, which at the time, in my eyes, qualified him as an old man. Today, it doesn't seem so.
I understand that.
One time we were talking, and he indicated that he was looking to sell the company. He had a son who was a professor at University of Pittsburgh and was not interested in taking over the company. I had some feeling of the company, and it was certainly interesting to me. I didn't feel that I knew very much about the business side of running a business. I was much more interested in the sales side, and I felt that Rosco had potential that Rosenstein was not exploring. I spoke to my cousin, who was an accountant working in his father's firm, and he was not that anxious to spend his life working in his father's firm. And we got together and bought the company in August of 1958.
What was it like for a relatively young man buying his way into a small but very successful business?
Well, getting back to the earliest days, part of the agreement with Mr. Rosenstein was that he would stay on for a month and teach us the business. Well, as I said, he was somewhat older than we were, and here this was his baby, his business. So for the first month, I picked him up in the morning, and we drove to the company, which was in Brooklyn, and he would show us what to do. Now, what that involved was Len, my partner, and I had, you can imagine the enthusiasm to get started, and all these plans and ideas, all the things we were going to do. This was our business. Now we were going to get started. And here was Mr. Rosenstein, who had done things his way for 48 years. Here these two wise guys came in, and we're going to mess everything up. So for a month, and he stayed every day of that month. For a month, every time we tried to do something, he, in a sense, slapped our hand and said, "We don't do it that way." We were going crazy with this. All we wanted to do was start to do it our way. And we couldn't. Everything we did was wrong. I tell you, it was the longest month of our life. If we could have torn up that contract where we obligated him to come in and teach us how to run the business, we would have done it immediately. But he lived up to the terms of the contract. He came in every day and told us what not to do. So finally he left and didn't come in anymore. And then we began to redo the way Rosco operated and make the changes that we felt should be made. So I kind of date our Rosco 1 month after August 8th, 1958.
Perfect.